and welcome to Common Ground, an inside look at Suffolk County. Joining me tonight, John Tobin, who is the Vice President of City and Community Services at Northeastern. In our second half, we're going to have Steve Lampron, who's the Director of Teen Services from the Jordan Boys and Girls Club in Chelsea. Welcome to the show.
Great to be
John.
here, Seth.
Usually, you know, in years past, I've had you on All About Boston, so this is a new venue for us to have an exciting conversation.
That's great. No, I love Common Ground. It's a terrific show. So, and you're a wonderful fill-in.
Fill-in, I know.
Yeah.
We should remind people at home that I'm filling in for the sheriff until November because, of course, this is an election year for him, and we, of course, don't want to give the misconception that he's getting more time than some of the candidates for sheriff.
Well, I'm glad the show's continuing, so it's great to be on. Thank you.
You're welcome. So you've been in your job now at Northeastern for about 4 years.
4 years in August, yeah.
So how has the transition been? I know it's obviously been 4 years, so it's no longer really a transition, but is everything you expected when you left the city council? Because of course you were a Boston City Councilor for a number of years.
In a way, it was not what I expected, in as much as I never thought, I discounted, I guess, the impact we have on other communities outside of Boston. You know, we have campuses in Brookline and Nahant and Dedham and Burlington, and so there are all things going on in those places as well. Our core mission is Boston, and where we sit in Roxbury, in the middle of the city. So I came smack dab in the middle of when we were trying to get more beds permitted on campus and coming out of one master plan, going into another master plan. I loved my time on the city council. I wouldn't be where I am at Northeastern without that experience. But it's hard to miss the city council in the city when I'm there all the time anyway. I feel like I'm more in City Hall now than when I was elected.
Right.
But it's great the relationships made with councilors who are there now, who have left like I have. In staff, the favorite part I love about going back to City Hall is the staff.
Yeah.
The security guards, the janitorial staff, the city council staff, people that you formed relationships with over the years, going to say hello, checking on their families and things like that. It's part of this kind of weird dysfunctional family you become part of. That's a pretty cool thing.
The biggest difference, of course, is probably when you go out now at night and on the weekends, you don't have to have people coming up to you and giving you city service requests.
I always told people, when you're on the city council, it's not like you're working in a coal mine. I'm not going to say that, but yeah, it's nice to go into Roach Brothers and not be held hostage to the frozen food aisle or at Dunkin' Donuts. And now it's great. Everybody's, how's your new job? It was 4 years ago, but people are great. I guess there's something to be said for leaving on your own.
Very true.
Without being voted off for it. There's something pretty nice about that you left on your own terms.
Right.
And so that's pretty good.
Well,
People were great when I was in office, and they're terrific now.
Well,
and so many great relationships with people over the years.
And people were shocked, frankly, when you left because a lot of people assumed that you would stay on until you had your chance to run for mayor, but you obviously didn't.
I was shocked too. Yeah, I mean, that was the plan. I mean, I used to write Tobin for mayor in my book bags, when I was 6 years old. Other people were writing the names of their favorite bands, but not me.
Bon Jovi.
Bon Jovi, that was yours, and
Yes.
Aerosmith with other folks and stuff. But mine was being mayor, but obviously, priorities change, and, two little boys that are now 6 and 7, almost 8 years old next week, Matthew. So that changes, and it was funny because I was at a soccer game back in October. They were up at Millennium Park in Worcester, Roxbury. They were on different teams, but they happened to be playing on parallel fields at the exact same time. So I don't sit with all the other parents. I just sit at my little folding chair, and I was unshaven, had a baseball hat on, Dunkin' Donuts coffee, and the Herald in my hand. Life couldn't have got any better. It was 80 degrees out, October, and this guy came in blowing over to me, and he says, "You miss it, don't you?" And I said, "Miss what, sir?" He says, "You know what I'm talking about, the mayor's race. You know you miss it. You know you want to be out there." And I said,
you're still a part of it anyway, even if it's not running.
I just told him, I said, "Sir, do you get a good look at what's going on here and what's going out there?" I said, "It's all good, and yeah, and it's still great to be a part of it and to have relationships with, with Mayor Walsh and Representative Walsh and Representative Honan, who I worked for in the State House, and Representative Fitzgerald, the late Kevin Fitzgerald, whose son works for me at Northeastern. Those three people welcomed me to the State House 2 days after I was elected for the first time in the City Council in 2001. Had me in the chamber and gave me a nice little celebration. It was pretty cool. So, and I still have that picture on my desk, and Representative Walsh, I worked with him when he's head of the building trades in my role at Northeastern. And the thing I like about him is that everything was settled over a cup of coffee and a blueberry muffin at Green Hills Bakery in Dorchester. If there was a dispute or something, it was just done in a great manner. So I'm looking forward to continue to work with him and his staff as it continues to take shape.
One of the things you're working on, of course, is the master plan. So tell me a little bit about that. Obviously, this is not the first master plan that has been done. In years past, there's always been large issues and small issues that the community cares about. So what are some of the issues that are on the table now, and how is Northeastern addressing them?
Well, let me just say, we mentioned Mayor Walsh, but obviously Mayor Menino, that this master plan that we passed in November, which is a 10-year master plan for the university. Every hospital and every educational institution has to file a master plan with the city, what your physical development is going to look like, and attached to that are community benefits. So everybody has to go through this process. It was a very interesting process, I think, for me personally to go through, and I think for a number of us to go through at Northeastern, because it makes you take a good hard look at yourself and your relationships with the neighborhood and with the community. And I'm of the mindset that you can pretty much do what you want for the university as long as you have good relationships with your neighbors, and how does it benefit them?
Right.
And it can't be a dialogue that takes place every 10 years or every 5 years. It's got to be a constant, ongoing dialogue and a partnership. And really, it's going to be a place, Northeastern has to be a place of opportunity particularly for young people who live right outside our campus. Our campus is right in the middle of the city.
Right.
Those kids may never don't go to Northeastern, may never go there, or their parents don't work there. We have to be a place of opportunity. But Mayor Menino was instrumental in shepherding that process along. Councilor Jackson was at the forefront. My old colleague, Mike Ross, was terrific. Jeffrey Sanchez from Mission Hill, just very, very, Senator Sonia Cheng Diaz, all came together along with the task force that's appointed by the BRA and the mayor's office. And we worked with our neighbors. We have 4 distinct neighborhoods we work with, Roxbury, the South End, Fenway, and Mission Hill. That's how we all...
Right, all different issues.
All different issues,
personalities.
different personalities, different agendas, and it's kind of it's a balancing act, but you say the same things in every single neighborhood. You don't deviate, you treat everybody the same. And it's akin to, if you want to build a deck in the back of your house and you need zoning relief, chances are your neighbors aren't going to come support you if you're a jerk. And if you're not talking with them, you're not friendly, you don't say hello, you don't work with them. It's the same thing. Same thing applies to a big institution like Northeastern University. So all of those, particularly Councilor Jackson and then Mayor Menino, really held our feet to the fire and worked with us in terms of what our community benefits are going to look like. And I think what we got passed in November has been hailed already as the blue ribbon of master plans moving forward. We're really proud of it.
So for folks at home that may not know the details, what are some of those benefits that people can point to and appreciate?
Well, first of all, we've already broken ground on a $225 million science and engineering building.
I ride by it all the time on my bike.
Which is great, yeah, which will have pedestrian and bicycle access off the back of it towards pointing into our campus. It's obviously next to a major transportation hub in Ruggles Station. There'll be a plaza there and a coffee shop there. It's a huge investment in Boston, in Roxbury,
right?
Which is going to be terrific. We've entered into a partnership with the city to do over and put a lot of money into operate and maintain. We're not going to own Carter Playground. The city of Boston will still maintain that, but it's going to be gorgeous. And it'll be, we've reached out through the last couple of years with all the major stakeholders, their Cathedral High football, their football team, the South Boston Pop Warner, South End Pop Warner team, South End Little League, soccer, the men and women, the older men and women who play tennis on the tennis courts there. And it's going to be a place so those 2 projects alone are just going to be so gorgeous. But the community benefits that we're going to do, one of the biggest ones is, we buy a lot of goods and services at Northeastern. How do we build capacity? But there's a lot of shops that don't have the capacity for us or organizations for us to buy from.
Right.
Whether it's paper or ink or you name it, things we buy in bulk.
Yeah.
So how do we build capacity? So we entered into a relationship, an agreement with Next Street Financial in Dudley Square, Ron Walker and Tim Ferguson in their shop, to put $2.5 million into a fund that's going to leverage $10 million so we can help these. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's going to help these places around us, particularly those organizations that are owned by people of color, by women, locally owned businesses. so that they benefit in our expansion, in our growth as well. They should come along for the ride with us as well.
Right.
So that's one of the things I'm pretty excited about. The other thing is the BRA and the mayor's office said, Northeastern, you do a lot more than a lot of other college and universities. Not that they don't all do a lot, they all do. We all have friends and colleagues who work at those respective institutions, and we have enormous respect for them. But being smack dab in the city, or around much more of the schools and the not-for-profits and where we're situated, but they said, but a lot of people don't know about it. And so we have a Center of Community Service, which is in the City and Community Affairs Department, that does service learning and community engagement. The kids' scholarships are tied to community service and working in the community. We have Foundation Year, we have Balfour Academy, we have Math Power, we have the Sport and Society. So all these organizations are really reaching out and working with the community in so many different ways. And so how do we make that more efficient? How do we make it so people know about it? So we're going to build in the community, and we're going to announce in the next couple of months where that's going, a Northeastern Hub or a crossing. It's a place where people can come in and find out about employment opportunities at Northeastern University. How do I get into Northeastern University as a student? How do I take, if I'm a senior citizen, how do I come in and how do I audit courses? It's a place where a professor can do a talk on a book they've just come out with, or show a documentary. It's a place for after-school tutoring. It's a place that we see as at least 6 days a week with a lot of energy, but a place for the community that's about Northeastern, and it's how we reach out into the community and strengthen those partnerships. So those are two of the biggest aspects in terms of community benefits. And along with Carter Playground, the three that headline a whole host of initiatives that we put forward that we negotiated and we talked about with the community during the IMP process and during countless one-on-one meetings and coffees. But I think what came out was a great product that is really a roadmap for our future, but also for the city of Boston.
That's great. I mean, I think that for a lot of people, especially in the Roxbury neighborhood, there is that sense, at least up until now, it's been sort of, oh, nobody really cares about us. They don't care about our needs. They don't care about the neighborhood. So it's great to hear that Northeastern is so active and trying to make it a positive place for everybody, not just the students at Northeastern, but the residents in the surrounding communities. So
yeah, I mean, Roxbury's been there for a couple 100 years. They're not going anywhere. Northeastern's been around for 115 years. We're not going anywhere. We might as well work together. And there's a lot of great synergy there. And I'm excited about what the city's investment is, which Mayor Menino started, and Mayor Walsh is obviously continuing.
In Dudley.
In Dudley, the Ferdinand building, what's going to happen there with the school department.
Yep.
Other opportunities are going to come up there.
The only concern I have about the Dudley Square location for the school department is the parking for Court Street staff, which is where they're currently housed, getting there. So I think that's going to be something that we'll have to see how that plays out and whether or not that impact is too great for the neighborhood.
Yeah, it's going to be, parking is always an issue no matter where you are and how you...
Well, and trying to get people comfortable with, okay, you can take, the T to wherever you need to be, or from wherever you are to Dudley Square.
Yeah, it's always an issue, and I trust that they'll try and be as creative as possible. I'm pretty excited about driving up Milnia Cass and seeing development already starting next to Tropical Foods. Some of the parcels that have already been put out there to bid and have won.
Yep.
And we're right on that side there.
They're talking about a BJ's now across the street from the police headquarters.
Yeah, at Parcel 3.
Yep.
A big box retail perhaps, and some smaller things. Whittier Housing Development is up for Hope 6 money, which is terrific, which would be great.
Some people at home might not know what Hope 6 money is, so.
Yeah, it's a federal government. You've seen some housing developments in the city have received these funds. It was another name for Hope 6 before. I forget what it was.
I forget too.
They've rebranded it, but essentially the mission is still the same. And they did it at Mission. Mission
Maine was the first one,
I think they did one over in South Boston, Rosendale.
Yep.
And so they've done a few of them, and it's just,
So it's basically, for folks at home, it's basically making the housing development look less like a brick prison, if you will, and more like home. So Mission Maine is a great example.
There's a front door, there's a back door, there's color. It's not like the blade. It's not a product. It's just how places were designed.
Right.
Back many years ago, it was more
like City Hall.
Like City Hall, exactly. I think that's a loss.
Dungeon.
I don't think we'll be able to do anything about that, but we can do something about the housing developments, and there's already a precedent. So I'm I think everybody's really hopeful and bullish. And
Bartlett Yard is another
Bartlett Yard is
example
another
of
one. Is
some
another one.
improvement in the neighborhood.
And then you'll start to see more and more, I think, restaurants and kind of nightlife sprout out
Right.
as a result of that. And
So we live
development
up-
and good development, is contagious.
Right, and we live up on Fort Hill, and that's one of the discussions we have as a community, is making sure that there are things for residents to do after hours where we don't have to go into the South End or even to Mission Hill or elsewhere in the city to have places to eat. that
Sure.
are good choices. There are a couple good restaurants, or actually just one, in the neighborhood right now.
Well, I lived in
But-
West Roxbury, as you know, and
Yeah.
you lived there at one point, and I mean, we dominated in pizza and pubs, and not that, again, there's some places that are still there that are well established and been there through the years, and Tony's Pizza, which is a great place,
Yep.
it's been there since 1967. I think he may be the longest serving business owner in West Roxbury, Elio. The place is jammed all the time.
Right.
But I think when other restaurants came in, it forced people from other communities to take a second look at what was already there. I think it's
Absolutely.
a rising tide lifts all boats, as they say. And I think when West on Center came in, that really helped existing places. I think like Tony's, like the Cora.
Yep.
The West Roxbury Pub is just closed. Mrs. Squealy sold. She sold to the owners of the Squealing Pig in Mission Hill.
Yep.
And they're going to open up a new place. They have already closed it. And the Queelys contributed so much to West Roxbury in terms of civic life. I wouldn't have been a city councilor without their help, with their function room at the West Roxbury Pub.
Actually, you bring up a good point, because when you have a community full of restaurants and shops, that helps the residents of that community as well. I mean, we can see the examples in West Roxbury where you guys have, the Parkway Little League and all of these different avenues where the community gets together. And I think that's, of course, I'm speaking for myself here, that's something I think is missing a little bit from parts of Roxbury.
Yeah.
But so when you have those businesses who are invested, then they start investing in the neighborhoods, and the people start investing in everything that goes on around them. So
Absolutely,
it's
and
great.
you get another look at places at night, and people,
Yep.
people come in. I just think, there's such an opportunity. I think it's one of the reasons why Councilor Presley and Councilor Jackson have asked the city to take a look at the liquor license situation
Right,
and
right.
lifting the cap. I think that would be a big help.
Something that has been talked about for years, so maybe this time will
Seems
be
to be gathering a little bit more steam,
Which is
you know,
good.
which is great.
It's very
Some
good.
things take time, but I think everybody's very hopeful on that. And speaking as someone who works at an institution that has over 3,000 employees, we don't all want to go home at night either, and it'd be great to get a bite to eat. And there are some existing places around. There's Darrell's Corner
Darrell's, yep.
Cafe. There's the Five Horses Tavern.
Yep.
God knows I've kept the electric bill on at Good Eats across the street on Tremont Street open for the last 3.5 years. I mean,
Estelle's is another new
Estelle's
spot on
is
the
great, right
corner.
across the street
Yep.
from the Parish Cafe.
Yep.
You got Slade's, it's been an institution there forever. They do a comedy night every Wednesday night with Jonathan Gates
Yep.
from Dorchester. He's been doing that show there for forever, for 20 years. And
New York Pizza.
New York Pizza, yeah.
You know what they need over there in Roxbury? Is FOMO.
I'm sorry?
FOMO, come on. The vegan ice cream.
Oh, of course,
Of
the vegan
course,
ice
come
cream.
on
Yeah,
now.
I'm a big connoisseur,
Yeah,
yes.
well, you should be.
Okay.
They have a nice location in
I'll get
Jamaica
on
Plain.
that. If there's one attached to a U-burger, I'll be all over it.
So switching gears a little bit, we've talked a little bit about city politics, but the big news, of course, of this past weekend was the Democratic convention happened. Were you surprised at all about the turnout there? Of course, Steve Grossman got the nomination for the Democrats. Martha Coakley and Don Berwick will all be on the ballot in September. Juliette Kayyem and Joe Avalone no longer part of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
Anything strike you?
It didn't seem to be a surprise. I mean, a couple of days beforehand, you had people who had the numbers, and they were pretty accurate with what they were coming out with. I mean, the thing that matters, obviously, is the September primary and the votes that are there.
Yep.
It's a people complain about the convention and how it is, but no one seems to ever change it. And it's often the people who complain about the 15% are often the people who don't make the 15%.
Right.
And it's one of those things where I do believe, in all seriousness, though, I think we would benefit from an earlier primary. Speaking as a Democrat, to have, and most oftentimes it's always the Democratic side that's always the one that's most heavily contested.
Right.
No one's saying you shouldn't have a contested primary, but it just seems weird to me that you have 4 or 5 people, beating the snot out of each other, and then there's one victor in September, and then 6 weeks, and then the next day they're all friends and friends, and
Exactly.
then they're all helping. And so meanwhile, the person that gets out of the primary. He's got a black eye and no money.
Right.
And meanwhile, the the other person on the other side is sitting back and sitting pretty and unopposed. And some people will say, well, they don't benefit from not having that contested race. They're not battle tested.
Right.
But
But on the Republican side, it will be Charlie Baker and Mark Fisher. Fisher's
going to be on the
he
the
is going to be on the ballot. So
I'll tell you, Charlie Baker has made vast improvements in terms of his campaign style.
Right.
You see it written about, but you see him in person. I've seen him and act just from watching him, just his demeanor and how he's actually a pretty good guy. He's a very successful and interesting person, interesting resume. I think whatever Democrat emerges.
Do you have any guesses? Any picks that you might? Not that you're necessarily endorsing a candidate, but
if you go by the polls, I mean, you see that Martha has such a huge lead in the polls. But Grossman does the retail thing very, very well. I mean,
right.
He has really courted people, and he goes after people individually. Calls them on their birthday and scooping them ice cream and showing up at every parade and doing his thing, and it's become kind of his calling card.
Right.
And I think that was reflective of how he did in the convention, how he. With the people who were there, you're appealing to a small number of people.
Right.
But again, that number, that's what you have to do. You have to do what you have to do to get that 15%. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, 10,000 signatures to get on the ballot is a lot of signatures.
Right.
You've got to do it though.
Right.
And so,
exactly.
So now it's time for the campaign to start.
I wish they would change though about that signature gathering is that if you're a statewide candidate, you don't have to worry about the different towns. So for folks at home, and some of you probably have done this. When you get a sheet, you sign your name, and at the bottom, you'll see a little box that's blank, and it says City or Town, and the person collecting the signatures should write in what town they're collecting for, and then you have to give them to the different city clerk's office and the different towns and cities across the Commonwealth. For statewide office, I want to start a movement where it should just be one sheet goes to the Secretary of State. They can verify whether or not the person is eligible to vote and sign the paper, and that's it.
We're solving. This is election reform happening
That's
right here, right at this
here.
very desk. This is where I'll have we're like the founding mothers and fathers of election reform in the state of Massachusetts.
Exactly.
This is where it all happened.
That's right here on common ground.
There'll be an oil painting of
That's
this
right.
at some point,
Exactly, where it all began.
Right.
Before we wrap up, I just want to give a plug. The Suffolk County Sheriff's Department is doing a re-entry Building the Future Forum on Wednesday, June 18th, which is tomorrow night, from 6 to 8. The doors open at 5:30 p.m. This will be at the Roxbury Community College. They have several guest panelists. The moderator, of course, is Sheriff Tompkins. Panelists will include Pastor Dickerson, City Councilor Tito Jackson, and Darnell Williams. So just wanted to do a little plug for that, and hopefully folks in the Boston area or even outside of the city and the other communities here in Suffolk County will want to go and check out Reentry, Building a Future. I want to thank you, John Tobin.
Thank you, Seth. I appreciate it. Seth McCoy.
That's right.
My pleasure.
I always like having you on as a guest, whether it's the show or All About Boston, because we get to have this nice little banter and talk about important things that happen in the city of Boston.
It's always great to be on. Best of luck with the rest of the program.
Thank you. And joining me in a few minutes is going to be Steve Lampron, who is the Director of Teen Services at Jordan Boys and Girls Club in Chelsea. Stay tuned.